Dana says she's in.
Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning and welcome to the Fort Pinellas Planning Support Services Pre-Proposal Webinar. My name is Rodney Chapman and I'm the Planning Division Manager. With me today is Chelsea Favero, who is also a planning manager for our agency, and she oversees all the operations of the MPO. We also have Jared Austin, who is a principal planner responsible for special projects, as well as Tina Jablon, who is our jack of all trades. So before we begin, let's cover a few housekeeping items. Please keep your microphones muted unless talking. Please mute your other devices while in this meeting. We ask that you use the raise hand function or a chat window to ask questions, and please leave your camera off unless talking. This meeting is being recorded, and we will post the recording on the web page we are creating for this consultant procurement. The web page hasn't been created yet, but it should be up in the next couple of days, and we'll send you an email with the link next week. We'll use our time together today to give you an overview of the procurement process, discuss several potential land use and transportation activities that we may undertake over the term of the contract, as well as other potential activities that advance the mission of Fort Pinellas. We will then use any time we have left to answer your questions.
Rodney?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Joan Rice has her hand up. Can I allow her to talk in
Sure.
case they're having any technical issues?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she lowered it down. I guess she's okay.
Okay. Well, for this procurement, Pinellas County Purchasing is supporting our work, and they are utilizing the OpenGov software platform. Please visit procurement.opengov.com/sign-up to register for access. We have developed a tentative, and I will stress a tentative timeline for this procurement, and you see the steps here. However, some of these dates may change because we are finalizing the procurement documents as we speak, and there are a few more internal reviews that are needed before we can finalize the timeline. For this consultant procurement, we are requiring that firms create teams that have experience in all 8 of these sub areas. The sub areas are multimodal transportation planning and analysis, economic analysis, website design, maintenance, and general communication support, urban design, land use and redevelopment, climate resilience, graphic design and renderings, and geographic information systems. Your proposals will be evaluated by a 5-member selection committee against 3 criteria. These are the ability of the firm and its professional personnel, which will receive up to 350 points, the firm's experience with projects of a similar size and past performance, which will receive up to 325 points, and the demonstrated understanding of the sub areas, which will receive up to 325 points. The total maximum points a proposal can receive is 1,000 points, and we will not score DBE participation. Again, we will not be scoring DBE participation, but including these types of firms on your team is encouraged. Each consultant's team's proposal will be scored, and the selection committee will determine if presentations are necessary after all scores are tabulated. The selection committee will then make a recommendation to the Fort Pinellas board, which will decide how many teams are awarded contracts. While we are not scoring DBE participation, we are required to track DBE payments for consultant work. FDOT's Office of Policy Planning has provided a bidder's opportunity list form that our agency will fill out during the procurement process. We are responsible for filling out the form and retaining it in our record-keeping system for this procurement and for any future DBE compliance audits. As a reminder, we are also responsible for tracking all commitments and payments for all contracts that have DBEs. Currently, there are technical issues with FDOT's Equal Opportunity Compliance System, so DBE commitments and payments will not need to be entered into the system. at this time. However, once these technical issues have been fixed, we will require all consultants to enter their DVE payment information along with project invoices. Now let's spend a few minutes talking about what we see as our land use planning needs going forward. Our agency frequently uses GIS for mapping, analytics, and visualization. We have access to a robust suite of Esri products, and one of these platforms is called ArcUrban. ArcUrban is a relatively new 3D GIS software platform that can be used for things such as redevelopment, scenario planning, and visualization. We are currently working with Pinellas County and Esri to complete a 3D model or digital twin of Pinellas County. Our challenge is that we'd like to use this platform for more planning work, but the training from Esri hasn't been as robust as we'd like, and we may need help fully realizing this platform's capabilities. In addition to scenario planning, we are very interested in using the software as a development tracker where we can visually convey where certain types of redevelopment activity is occurring around Pinellas County, such as in the Gateway area or within our designated target employment centers. Our agency also has an economic development strategy that reserves certain land for high-paying primary employment jobs. This strategy is nuanced, and in the coming months, we will allow for certain districts and areas to permit more use types that complement high-wage employment. In order to allow this additional flexibility, we will require local governments to develop and adopt local master plans that incorporate and balance several factors. These master plans will be developed by the applicable city and may be jointly funded and managed by our agency and the local government. Since we are a densely populated, redeveloping coastal county, climate resilience and emergency preparedness are very important to us. There is a growing interest in adding more residential density in some of our existing as well as proposed activity centers. Unfortunately, these locations are in the coastal high hazard area, and several criteria must be considered before we can support such a request. Two factors we must evaluate when considering these types of requests are hurricane shelter impacts and emergency evacuation route capacity. There is a deficit in shelter space for D and E level evacuations that must be addressed. Also, our rules require an assessment of the capacity of the evacuation routes. We have pursued a few avenues to try and identify an appropriate methodology for this criteria, but have been unsuccessful to date. We also believe that indices are an effective approach to helping us measure transportation impacts and need from a land use perspective. We have developed a multimodal accessibility index that we plan to use to replace vehicle level of service, but anticipate further developing this tool in the coming years. We also believe there is a need to have firms that can serve in a peer review capacity for traffic studies for local government development order applications. Over the past several years, we have done a lot to advance transit-oriented development in Pinellas County. The Advantage Pinellas Investment Corridor Framework is the centerpiece of our strategy, and a TOD plan has been developed for the Sunrunner Corridor. We are working on the next TOD plan right now for the Alt 19 corridor, and we'll be working on the other investment corridors in the coming years. These plans will need to go beyond the standard FDOT corridor plan by helping to define appropriate enhanced transit concepts and make specific recommendations to amend local regulations contained in their comprehensive plans and land development regulations so these corridors can be TOD ready. We frequently provide, we're frequently asked to provide technical support to our 24 cities and can often meet these requests through our staff capacity. When our staff capacity is limited, however, we may ask one of our consulting firms for assistance. There will also be opportunities for the cities to piggyback on our consultant contracts for work on local priority projects. In past years, we have also been fortunate enough to have funding for a couple of pilot programs. These are grants to our local governments for a specific purpose. Our current pilot program has an urban design focus And we anticipate the need to have firms with this and related types of expertise going forward. As you all know, the cost of housing is of countywide importance. We are working with Pinellas County and our cities on a housing compact action plan. There are several short and long-term actions being considered for the plan, and we anticipate needing a consultant to help us identify best practices and develop tools to better address this complex challenge. I'll now turn it over to Chelsea, who will provide an overview of our transportation planning needs.
All right, thanks, Rodney. You can go ahead and advance the next slide. So I'm just going to cover some of the MPO needs basically that we know we're going to have over the next couple of years. The first and foremost is support for our long-range transportation plan. We've actually already begun development of our socioeconomic data. However, the next phases of plan development, we are definitely going to be needing some consultant resources for, including the documentation of financial revenues, balancing of our cost feasible projects, final plan documentation, and everything you see here, including translation services. We do not intend to fully translate the full long-range plan document, but our final plan summary, absolutely we will. In regards to Safe Streets Pinellas, we have just been awarded a grant through the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program, and we're going to be moving forward with safety projects throughout Pinellas County. Going forward, though, in addition to that, we'd like to continue to evaluate the high injury network. We would like to kind of update the high injury network, knowing that it's been a few years since we looked at the data for that. And then we'd also like the consultants to support us with requests from our local governments for safety evaluations along the network. Next slide. Our Complete Streets Grant program we've had in place for about 6 years now. Through the program, we provide up to $100,000 each year to our local government partners to develop complete streets concept plans. And through that program, we do require that they utilize one of our general planning consultants. So the consultants that are responding should be aware that those opportunities will exist. So each year, either 1, 2, maybe even 3 concept planning projects may be up for use by these consulting firms. We've also begun conducting before and after analyses for our complete streets construction projects. To date, we've only done one of these before studies, but we do have a few complete streets construction projects coming up in the work program. So we anticipate doing at least 2 in the next year, probably about 4 to 5 over the next several years of these before studies along the various roadways that have received this grant funding. At the regional level, we will be looking for consultant support to support the regional long-range transportation plan and regional public engagement. We are already scoped and about to be underway for a regional needs assessment. However, going forward, the MPOs in the region each commit $5,000 annually towards regional LRTP and public engagement. So there will be continued needs for that type of support going forward. One thing that we'd also like to look at, there's a lot of talk about new toll facilities within the county, maybe even on outside of the interstate corridor. So we'd like to have support to evaluate the impact, both fiscal and demand, of new toll facilities. And then we'd also like to be looking at the potential for value capture with different transit service investments throughout Pinellas County going forward as well. Next slide. In the Gateway area, we finished a comprehensive Gateway area master plan in this area with 4 of our local government partners. We're kind of moving into the implementation phase of that plan where we're exploring the establishment of a TMO. And we'll definitely be needing some support for that. To kind of go hand in hand with that, we're looking at conducting a detailed mobility evaluation of the Gateway area, knowing that once the Gateway Expressway opens and the toll lanes on the new Howard Franklin Bridge, there may be some shifting of trips on the network, and we want to be able to evaluate how that's impacting, transportation movement in that area. And then we're also moving forward with the development of an employer survey in the Gateway area as well. Regarding US 19, we have taken over from TBARDA an evaluation of regional transit service in the corridor, and we're going to be looking towards how we can implement that. So there will be some additional analysis required in the US 19 corridor to see what kind of service best fits. And for that, we'd also need consultant support. And we also continue our conversation about innovative intersection opportunities and whether those are the right fit for that corridor, or if there's some kind of alternative to innovative intersections, or just your typical interchanges that we've seen. In addition to that, we are continuing to do transit systems planning throughout Pinellas County. We have the Advantage Alt 19 corridor evaluation underway now. We do anticipate moving that to other corridors, and also seeing, now that Sunrunner is up and operational, where is Sunrunner 2? So we'll be working very closely with PSTA on that evaluation and utilizing our consultant support for that as well. Next slide. For active transportation projects, we actually have a lot that we'd like to get underway within the next couple of years. One is we've been advancing projects onto our priority list from our active transportation plan. However, because these projects didn't come from, say, local government sponsors, they kind of came from all of us, we have committed to providing detailed cost estimates to our local government partners for those. Those are cost estimates that we cannot develop in-house, so we will be looking to utilize consultant services for that. We have at least 2 now requests for trail alignment studies. We are going to be working on a trail wayfinding program, and then we have this ongoing desire to evaluate our trail crossings for safety improvements, utilizing new technology and things like that. We'll also be looking for assistance in developing grant applications for state and federal funding. These could be projects through the IIJA, the BIL, whatever you want to call it, or other grant programs as they come up. Next slide. I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea. Wanted to cover just briefly other potential activities that sort of span both transportation and land use needs across the agency. One of the things that is very important to us is our website. That is our front door or front window to the public. And we have a strong need for firms that can help us with maintaining the existing website, and also helping us to come up with other creative opportunities to use improvements in the way the website functions, looks, and feels in order to get our message out. It's important to note that our website uses WordPress, so experience with that software is of the utmost importance. We also believe in the ability of using visualization to convey a message, and we place a high value on the ability to produce graphics and as well as renderings. We also feel that we will have a need for communication support, but from a strategic perspective. We're not really looking for public involvement coordinators or folks to help us plan meetings. It's more about how do you strategically get your message out in an effective and high quality way. We are also interested in firms that have experience with various project portals or platforms. We've used quite a few of these types of platforms for various projects in the past, and I have noticed that the technology continues to advance to the point to where even some of these platforms now have things like virtual meeting rooms. And so very much interested in firms that have experience with those. There will also be a need to have firms that can demonstrate an ability of adaptability, or a high level of adaptability and flexibility, because the nature of our work is sometimes unpredictable, and we want to be as responsive to our local governments and stakeholders as possible. So having firms that are experienced with creative thinking and out of the box approaches will be very important to us as well. And then lastly, we believe strongly in doing things differently if we want to change the outcomes that we have right now. So one of the things that's important within that framework is to have staff and firms that are not afraid to be innovative. And so the ability of your firms to demonstrate how they have used new techniques, tools, or approaches that have had positive outcomes will be very important to us in the evaluation process. So this now concludes the formal part of the presentation, and we will now open up the floor to questions. We ask that you use the raise hand function or the chat box to ask your question. Tina, do we have any questions or any raised hands? And you're on mute.
My child showed up unannounced, sorry. No, there aren't any raised hands at the moment.
Okay. Well, again, we provided this webinar to you to give an overview of the needs we feel we will have over the next few years. And once we issue the solicitation, sometime next week, we'll, as you guys know, we'll enter the cone of silence, where there will be a more formalized process in order for you to submit your questions and get those answered. So unless there's any other questions for us at this time, we'll go ahead and conclude.
I do have one, Rodney.
Okay.
I have Stephen Shoecraft.
Hey, Steve.
Just a quick question. Will the presentation you just gave be available?
Yes, we'll do two things. We will, if we can do it technologically, we'll email out a copy of the presentation to everyone that is attended today, but we'll also post the presentation and the recording to the webpage that we'll set up for this procurement.
Great, thank you.
Laura Canary also has a question, Rodney.
Hey, Laura. Is she on mute?
Oh, hello. Thank you.
Morning.
Thank you for the presentation. My question, can you possibly go back to that first or second slide that showed the tentative schedule?
Mm-hmm. Oh, go back. There you go, Laura. And again, these dates are tentative. I know you see a lot of detail there, but again, everything is going to be triggered off of when we release the procurement. So just take all this with a grain of salt.
Okay. And then Chelsea, is it possible for you to just maybe elaborate a little bit on the Gateway Employer Survey? What that project may entail?
Yeah, so that's part of the establishment of a TMO, where we're trying to survey the employers in that area to even identify if like they're even willing to do a TMO. And if they are willing, are they willing to, you know, what kind of investment are they willing to make? Is it time? Is it money? Is it resources? So before we kind of get too far down into the establishment of a TMO, we want to really make sure that they're on board with us and then bring them along with us. So that's really what that effort is going to be about.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
And we have another question from Christine Crespo, Rodney.
Good morning, Christine.
Hey, good morning, Rodney and team. So my question, you mentioned briefly you would make your recommendations to the board and an ultimate selection would be made at that point. Do you anticipate reducing maybe the amount of consultants that you ultimately select for this particular contract, or is it still kind of open in terms of, you know, the quantity of consultants or contracts that you're going to select?
Good question. I'm going to try to give you a vague and direct, a clear and direct answer. Try not to be too vague. I believe the selection committee's recommendation in terms of number of consultant teams that they will advance and make a recommendation to enter into contracts with will be based on the scoring and the grouping of the scores. So for example, if we have a lot of teams that are grouped within that, let's say 900 to 1,000 point total, and then there's a clear gap between that grouping and the following group of firms, then we would anticipate the selection committee making that recommendation. And that may be, 3 or 4 teams of consultants. We just don't know because this is our first time taking this approach. This is the third procurement I've been in since I've been here. And we've done it a bit differently each time. And for example, last time we didn't want teams, we wanted individual firms. And so we ended up entering into contracts with 22 consulting firms.
Right.
And that had some benefits, but it also had some drawbacks.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That is helpful information. I appreciate it.
Any more, Tina?
Not at the moment.
Okay, last chance for you guys. Okay, well, again, thank you for sharing a few minutes of your Friday morning with us, so you can hear more about the consultant needs we have going forward. Again, we will email a copy of the presentation out to you, and we will be setting up a web page next week for this consultant procurement. And we'll again ask you, if you haven't already, go to the OpenGov website to sign up for access. That's where all the procurement documents and everything you'll need to know relative to this procurement will be posted. Again, thank you for your time, and you guys have a great day.